How's it going? All right, I see. Everybody's a little laid back today. Next weekend's big celebration weekend. July 4th coming up. Just chilling? All right, cool. All right, so we are going to be in week 2 of this series on Peter. And I'm just going to kind of jump in here and give you the rundown. I actually went back this week and triple checked to make sure that I'm not lying to you. We're not jumping around in order of chronology, but we are jumping forward, and we'll kind of do that. With 7 weeks that we're going to spend on Peter, and we're basically, you got to understand, Jesus' ministry was 3 years, and Peter is not the highlight of Jesus' ministry, but he is a key piece in it, which means that Peter and stories about Peter don't come up as often as Jesus, because Jesus is the point, right? So we're jumping forward a couple, I don't know, it's hard to pinpoint, but we're jumping forward a good bit of time from last week. So last week we talked about Peter being called to be a disciple of Jesus, and the idea, or the whole deal there was they're out on the boat. Jesus, said cast out the nets, and all of a sudden they realize it's God, and so they go and follow him. So here, where we're jumping to is this period of time where Jesus is preaching and huge crowds are coming. But at the beginning of this chapter 14, these events kind of happen in sequence. At the beginning of chapter 14 of Matthew, which is where we're going to be today. We're going to be 22 to 36. At the beginning of that chapter, what happens is John the Baptist is killed. So if you have not been around the church for a long time and you hear the term John the Baptist, you're like, oh, he started the Baptist church. No. I've heard a pastor say, call him John the Baptizer. The Baptizer. It's really weird to say, so that's why people don't say it. John the Baptizer. And the idea, what he did was he went around preaching that the Messiah is coming, you need to repent and be baptized. And that was John's whole role, was to kind of clear the way for Jesus. Jesus finds out, or John is preaching, and he calls the local king, who is appointed by the Roman rulers, to repent of his lifestyle. The king doesn't like it, and so the king arrests him. And then there's this whole deal, this whole sequence of events, and basically what ends up happening is John is beheaded, and then his disciples come, bury his body, and tell Jesus. So Jesus finds out about this, and this is a big deal to Jesus because, first of all, there's a lot of things going on. First of all, Jesus knows that he's going to be crucified at the end of this. So you remember, he's 100% God, 100% man. He knows where this is headed. Right? He knows that this is headed to his death. And so that must have sunk in and been like, oh, all right. But then there's also the fact that John was Jesus' cousin. And so there's a personal loss here. And so Jesus' response to John being killed is that he goes off into the hills and wants to hang out in the wilderness alone. He's grieving. He wants to meet with God in a peaceful place. Anybody ever find that hard to do? Right? Jesus finds that hard to do because the next thing that happens is people follow him there. People follow him there. 5,000 men are counted in this count, which means if we use current day, the way that we do church statistics and all of that, there's 3 to 3.5 people accounted per family unit is how we do it, right? We're going to go 3 because the math is easier. So that's 15,000 people follow him into the hills. So he starts teaching. And it comes to the end of the day, and the disciples are like, hey, Jesus, we're pretty far down this path. We've hiked a long way. You need to send them home so they can eat. And Jesus says, you feed them. And they're like, with what? We got 5 loaves of bread and 2 fish. We barely got enough food for the 13 of us. How's that going to work? And then Jesus says, well, just do it. And he prays over the food, and they start handing it out. And by the end of it, they got leftovers, which I'm not sure you want leftovers of fish in the Galilean countryside. I don't know. It must have been preserved somehow, but if not, that's yuck. So that's kind of all of that happens. And then Jesus, where we pick up, Jesus tells the disciples to go on across the lake and he'll catch up with them. And then he dismisses the crowd. And we pick up in verse 22. So 14:22. Immediately, Jesus made the disciples get into the boat and go on ahead of him to the other side while he dismissed the crowd. After he had dismissed them, he went up on a mountainside by himself to pray. Later that night, he was there alone, and the boat was already a considerable distance from land, buffeted by the waves because the wind was against it. Shortly before dawn, Jesus went out to them, walking on the lake. When the disciples saw him walking on the lake, they were terrified. "It's a ghost." They said, "It's a ghost," they said, and cried out in fear. But Jesus immediately said to them, "Take courage, it is I. Don't be afraid." "Lord, if it's you," Peter replied, "tell me to come to you on the water." "Come," he said. Then Peter got down out of the boat, walked on the water, and came towards Jesus. But when he saw the wind, he was afraid and began to sink, crying out, "Lord, save me." Immediately Jesus reached out his hand and caught him. "You of little faith," he said, "why did you doubt?" And when they climbed into the boat, the wind died down. Then those who were on the boat worshiped him, saying, "Truly, you are the Son of God." I'm going to stop there. So, recap. Jesus, trying to get away from the crowd, goes and hides. They all show up, and he preaches, and then he's like, "All right, I'm going to get away again." And he sends the disciples across the lake. He looks out to see the boat stuck in the middle of the lake because of the wind and the waves. They can't get to the other side, right? And so they're just stuck there. I'm sure that at this point, that's got to be a terrifying thing. Like, have you ever been on the water in a motorboat in a storm? When it starts swelling and it gets all it's terrifying. One time when I was a kid, I was, I don't know, it's 10 or 11. We went to my aunt and uncle's house down in Ocean Isle, I think. I don't know, it's down North Carolina coast. And he had like a 18-foot boat that he would take out and fish, kind of along the shore. And we're like, let's go fishing. And for whatever reason, the wind picked up that day on our way in. I have never been more terrified in my life because it's just wham, wham. And it's a tiny little boat. I mean, like, that's not that you wouldn't want to be in the boat that big on the Patuxent when it got windy. And it's just wham, going over the breakers. And I was so scared, right? I can't imagine how the disciples must have felt because they couldn't even make progress. They were just stuck. Like, they didn't have a motor to get them through the waves. They just kind of had to sit in them and ride them out. And so that's they're just sitting. Jesus sees it and he goes, I'll just walk to them. Okay, if you've been in church for your whole life, you're like, yeah, I know this story, blah, blah, blah. You walked to him, you walked on the water, Peter got out the boat, he got scared, right? Unpack this for a second. How crazy. Jesus has to have a sense of humor right now. They're terrified on a boat, and Jesus says, I'll walk to them. He just comes out, like, I just imagine him like, like ice skating across the water. Hey, guys. They freak out. It's a ghost. And no, it's me. Don't be scared. And then Peter says, well, if it's you, let me come to you. Okay, so Jesus has a sense of humor. Peter's crazy. Look, I don't do big water. Like, I sink. You know what I'm saying? And I'm not a great swimmer. Like, I can stay alive in the deep end. You know what I'm saying? But like, you put me in the middle of I've been listening to a lot of these like documentary style podcasts about people. It's called Against All Odds. So it's about people who get stuck in situations where they should die, but then they escape. And there's been like 3 or 4 of them where people are lost at sea, shipwreck or whatever, right? I cannot imagine that. If I can't see my toes, I think I'm probably going to die. There's probably a shark that's going to bite me. Even if I'm in fresh water, I need to be able to see my toes, preferably the bottom. Preferably, I can touch the bottom with my feet. I can't imagine doing what Peter did. Peter says, let me come out to you. Okay. And he steps off the boat into waves that make them feel like they're gonna die. It's an amazing act of faith. And then he gets scared. And then Jesus rebukes him. You have little faith. Why did you doubt? And that's kind of the whole story. And the way that this gets unpacked, a lot of times, I feel like sometimes the way that this story gets unpacked, it makes Peter seem like a loser. Because it's like, hey, he doubted. Don't doubt. Have faith. Be better than that. Have faith. Don't doubt. In the midst of the storm, don't doubt. Step out of the boat, but don't get scared when it gets crazy. Don't doubt. Don't doubt. Don't doubt. And like, I'm gonna preach a sermon that says a lot of don't doubt, but I think that Peter is pretty normal. If you think about this metaphorically, what this looks like for your life, like when you have times in your life where the wind is ripping and the waves are huge, and you know that Jesus is with you, you know, but sometimes you don't. Right? The thing I think that sets Peter apart from the rest of us, most of the rest of us, is he got out the boat. So let's unpack some of this stuff. I got 3 things I think we can learn from Peter in this situation. The first one is this: don't let fear do the work of reason. Right? So what I mean by this is you can't allow your fear to make you be reactive, to just react to the situation and not stop and think about it. Now, unpack this thought with me. It's a very strange thought, okay? So just roll with me on it. It's a very strange thought. But which is more reasonable? That the person walking across the water is the guy who just fed 15,000 people with a snack and was in the direction and is coming from the direction he was in, or it's a ghost? What's actually more reasonable here? I know it's really weird, but the more reasonable thought is that it's Jesus. They've seen him do amazing things, and yet they still jump to, oh, it's a ghost. Don't let fear do the work of reason. In your life, right? In your life, you get like this is a principle for life in general. You can't allow fear to do the work of reason. I think a lot of times we do that. This is how you end up in the cascading situations where one thing goes bad, you react to the one thing going bad, and you cause something else to go bad, and then something else goes bad, and then something else goes bad, and the next thing you know, it's just been bad. Like that fear is well, okay. So yesterday, right? Yesterday morning, we get going, and for the day, Amanda's got to go to D.C. She's got to visit with some friends. I got to take the girls to the grandparents, then I got to come here and work for a little bit. That's kind of what the morning looked like, right? And so I did not want my day to be a bad day. That was like my main focus, which if that's your main focus in the morning, you're going to have a bad day. Anybody ever notice that? Like, I'm not going to have a bad day today. Good luck, dude. You are going to get pooped on by a bird that's flying over. Like, everything's going to go bad just because I don't know why that came out. Pooped on by a bird. Anyway. So the first thing that I do in the morning is fall back asleep because it's Saturday and I got to work and I want to. So my morning starts with, hey, can you help me with these kids? That's a bad way to start your morning because I'm already a little bit in trouble. And also these kids, I love very much, but they annoy me more before like 10 o'clock and after midnight. Between 10 and midnight, I'm good. I got a 14-hour window. I got a 10-hour window that's not great, right? And so, yeah, okay, I start getting moving. I'm not doing very good. By the time Amanda's frustrated, not just with everything, like the kids and everything else, because Amanda can't go anywhere without being touched and pulled on and yelled at and asked for and everything else, right? And meanwhile, I can do whatever I want and they don't care. And so she leaves, she's upset. I take the girls, they're upset. And the whole day, this is my fear for the whole day. This day is going to be bad. I don't want this day to be bad, right? And so the whole day, that's my thing. And I spend the whole day trying to not make the day bad, so I'm reacting to my fear for the day. And by the end of the day, this is what had happened. I had not finished the work I needed to do here. And my truck just started hemorrhaging diesel fuel. So I had to get it to the shop. And you get to the end of the day, and it's just like, I started the whole day going, I don't want this to be a bad day. And it was a bad day. I allowed my fear of the bad day to create a bad day, right? We allow that, and just practically in our lives, when fear does the work of reason, circumstances are in control. In our spiritual lives, it's the same. When fear does the work of reason in our spiritual lives, the problems that come in front of us look scary. They look bigger than we can overcome. They look like things we can't control. And they may be scary. They may be bigger than you can overcome. And they may be out of your control. Those things may be true, but reason would tell you in your spiritual life, reason would tell you that Jesus can overcome anything and that this isn't too big. He's seen me through this, so he'll see me through that. Right? We can't allow fear to do the work of reason. The next thing is you have to let faith give you courage to do the unreasonable. So you can't let fear do the work of reason. You have to stop at these situations and analyze them. Peter seemingly did. He stops and he goes, oh, that's probably Jesus, right? But then when you realize God's in a situation, when you realize God's present, you need to allow your faith to let you do the unreasonable thing. Peter goes, oh my goodness, that's Jesus. Hey, if it's you, can I come out? Can I come out there? A couple of things. The first thing is this. It was Peter's idea. It was Peter's idea to get out of the boat. Lord, if it's you, let me come out to you on the water. All Jesus said is, come on. I think a lot of times I actually alluded to it a little bit before. This is what I think we do. We segregate our real life from our spiritual life. And even the way I said it, you get what I'm saying? You understand what I mean. We segregate life from our spiritual life. We allow that to happen. I think a lot of this kind of happens, especially around here naturally, because we have a ton of people who work in big corporation or government, and that means that you can't take your spiritual life with you to work. You're not supposed to, right? And so like, I get it, but like, that's not the way that it's supposed to work. The spiritual is supposed to overtake everything else, and it's all supposed to be spiritual. It's all supposed to go back to God, right? That's the way that this works. And so we segregate the two things, and then in doing that, we don't allow God to work in our everyday. We don't allow God to work in the regular because it doesn't make any sense. We reason our way out of the move of God because I have this spiritual side of me, but that's not this. This is real, right? If you approach life that way, you'll never have the idea that Peter had. You'll never have an idea like that where it's like, hey, that's God. Let me chase that. Right? The other thing is this: in the church world, there's this phrase that you'll hear when you talk to people, and it's usually people. Yeah, I'm just gonna say that. So it's usually people who are like in a pretty solid place in their life. They're not in a lot of struggle, right? Life is just pretty good. And you'll hear these people say this: I'm just waiting on God to tell me what's next. I'm just waiting on God to tell me what's next. That phrase is used as a cop-out. That phrase is used as a cop-out like probably 90% of the time. You have a brain. He made your brain a specific way. Use it. Peter's idea was to get out of the boat. Jesus didn't say, hey, dude, this is awesome. I'm cutting backflips out here. I just did a really cool trick on a wave. Like, he didn't say that. Peter said, hey, if it's you, can I come? What if we had that attitude towards God? God, if you're in it, send me there. We spend so much time in our lives like, I'm waiting on him to tell me what's next. I'm waiting on him to bless what's happening in my life. I'm waiting on this. I'm waiting on this. I'm waiting on this. I'm waiting on this. It's like, okay, yeah, wait on the Lord to move. Absolutely. But if he's already there, just ask him what to do next. If he's already there, be like, hey, can I come to you? So, the piece here with Peter, once he knew it was Jesus, once he heard his voice, he was willing to jump. I think a lot of times the holdup on that move, the holdup on being willing to step out in faith towards God, it's fear, it's doubt. Is this going to work? Right? Is this going to be? This doesn't seem safe. This doesn't seem stable. This doesn't make any sense. If everything God ever asked you to do in your life was stable and made sense to you, one of two things is true. Either that ain't God, you're just listening to your own internal thoughts, or God has dumbed down what he's asking you so much to try to just get you to move a little bit, that he's come in your direction. And if that's the case, you gotta move, because at some point he's gonna give you what you want. And if what you want is to just sit safe and soak in your own stuff, he'll give that to you. I think that there are a lot of Christians that live in that place. I think that there are a lot of Christians that live in the place of God has given them the opportunity to jump, to step out and face so many times, and we just haven't done it. And then finally God just says, okay, you can have what you want. But that doesn't lead to the what Jesus says. I came so that they could have life and have it to the fullest. It doesn't lead to that. That sitting in your own fear, it leads to this place of just unfulfillment. And there's so much beauty to be found in the risk. There's so much life to be found in stepping out and just following him. And we leave that on the table because we like safety. But if God is moving and we're moving with him, is there any safer place in the world to be? Peter stepped out of the boat, and he did. He started to doubt. He started to get scared. The waves got big, and the wind was rough, and he didn't look at Jesus. But here's the thing: who was safer? The people still in the boat getting battered around, or Peter when Jesus grabbed him by the arm and lifted him up? The last thing that we can learn from Peter doubt is not deadly. It's just an opportunity to grow. So this whole conversation has ultimately been about doubt, right? It's ultimately been about doubt. The first thing, don't let fear do the work of reason. In the moments in our lives when it seems like God's hard to find, and when it seems like this doesn't make any sense, and when it seems like he's not there, you have to allow yourself to take a step back and find him in the mess. And because otherwise your doubts will only grow, right? And then when it's time to step out in faith and do the unreasonable, you have to take the time to fight your doubts, because your doubts are what keep you glued to the floor. They keep you from stepping out. They're the thing that keep you from doing what you're supposed to do, right? And the thing about Peter that's so beautiful here is he did all of those things in faith. He recognized it was Jesus. He stepped out and he walked on water. And then he started to sink because he did have doubt. But when the doubt caught him, he was already out with Jesus doing what Jesus had asked him to do, and Jesus swept him up. And a lot of times we allow the story when it's preached to stop there, to stop with Jesus saying, "You have little faith, why did you doubt?" We allow it to stop there and just be like, hey, you need to have faith, don't doubt. Hey, you need to have faith, don't doubt. But here's the thing. When you do doubt, it is not deadly. It is not the end. This is what happens with Peter. He doubts here. And in 2 chapters later, which is not very far forward in time, he ends up being the first to proclaim Jesus as the Messiah. You are the Messiah, the Son of the living God. And Jesus says to him, God told you that. And because you listened to God, your name is now Peter, and on this rock I will build my church. You see, a lot of times in our lives, we get afraid of our doubts because what happens is if my doubts are right, then my God is wrong. And if my God is wrong, that changes a lot. Like I got a lot riding on this thing, and we're fearful of our doubts. We don't turn to them. We run from them. We don't face them down. We avoid them. And then what happens is they just grow and grow and grow. They multiply. Oh, that's cool. Okay, so my bathroom, right? For whatever reason, our bathroom and our master bathroom in our house, it just gets mildewy really easy. And our house is like new, It should not be that way, but it is, and I'm not 100% sure why. It just gets it gets mildewy really easy. So I have to clean it like a couple times a year, just bleach the crap out of the paint, right? I do that a couple times a year. And I was just after last service, I was talking to one of the guys here, and I mentioned that, and he actually specializes in mold remediation. And he said, yeah, I got some stuff you can spray on that, like whatever. I was like, well, I'll wipe it down a couple times a year. And he goes, all you got to do is leave the lights on, right? I'm like, what? If you leave the lights on, it won't grow. Just leave the lights on in the bathroom. I said, that makes sense because my wife does not leave a single light on that is not being used, right? Just leave the lights on. So we're so afraid of our doubts that we will live with them in the dark. You just need to turn the lights on. You just need to turn to them and face them. Peter doubted, but he didn't stay there. He grew from it. That wasn't his destination. Peter's destination was to be the foundation of the church in Jerusalem, that was the foundation of the church that spread all around the rim of the Mediterranean, was to be a martyr for the gospel of Jesus Christ, to be someone that God did an amazing thing for. What I believe that what happens here in this story, when Peter had the gall to step out onto the water, but then had doubt, and then Jesus saved him. What happened there, the growth that came from there led to the confession as the Messiah and led to him ultimately being the apostle, the martyr, the hero of the faith that we remember today. This moment where he had doubt, it was seen in public, and then it was taken care of and moved forward. He faced it, Jesus saved him from it, changed everything. This is a pivotal moment of growth for Peter. And I think we, in our fear of the doubts in our minds, in our fear that if we step out, God might not be there, in our fear that we just might be wrong, we don't grow. We don't move forward. So yesterday, I worked out yesterday. This is a story about working out. Sorry. So I work out a good bit. I don't look like it, but I do, I promise. I'm not lying to you. It's uncomfortable if you don't laugh at that, because now I think you actually think that I don't work out. Okay, so I went to work out yesterday, and yesterday was this was a workout. 15 of these kettlebells swings from hell, where you it was a mess. And then and I used that word properly. They're literally from there, so don't be mad at me. And then 15 of those, and then 18 box jumps, and then 21 sit-ups. Now here's the thing, I weigh 285 pounds. The box is 20 inches high. I'm like earthbound. You know what I'm saying? I'm good with it too. I'm not gonna play basketball and I'm not gonna skydive. I understand. And I gotta do these box jumps. And oh, by the way, it was 5 rounds of that. So it's 90 box jumps. And I hate box jumps. Because here's the thing, if you come up short, you're gonna just rake your shins on the edge of a wooden box. And if you lose your balance, you're gonna fall forward. 285 pounds, something's gonna break. I don't like it. So we start doing the workout. And first round, did them all, didn't have to take a break. Which 18, you're like, okay, that sounds like a lot, but it's also less than 20, It was hard, okay? Didn't have to take a break. Second round, don't have to take a break, get through it. I didn't have to take a break on anything. The sit-ups are slow because I'm sitting up over a lot, but I didn't have to take a break on anything the first 2 rounds, all right? Then I get to the box jumps on the third round, and for whatever reason, my brain just just decided to do its own thing, and I went full skip to my loo and went one leg up, one leg down, and I just was like, oh, and I fell. Now, here's the thing. There was a time when that would have been it for me, because that's scary. It sounds silly, but it's actually scary. That's not something people normally do. And so it's not gonna be, you're not gonna die from it, but also that's just uncomfortable. And so most of the time in the past, after I fell like that, it's I'm doing step-ups now. And I'm gonna tell everybody it's because it's safer, but it's also because it's easier, right? And so that's what I'm gonna do. Instead, this time, I looked at my friends real quick and I was like, well, that sucked. And then I jumped as quick as I could the next time, because if I stop too long, I'm gonna quit. But if I just keep moving, if I just keep trusting, I've done this 40 times already, it's gonna be okay, I can keep doing it. If I just keep moving, it'll be all right. When it comes to our faith and our doubt, we need to just keep marching forward, facing our doubts, and allowing our God to bear himself out. And if we do that, at some point, you're gonna cross a doubt that was a huge one. and it might eat you up. It might be bad. It might be whatever, but you're going to come out on the other side of it, and you'll find that that was a turning point in your faith. And after that moment, everything changed. After that moment, everything changed. So many of us don't make it to that point. So many of us don't see the change that Peter saw. So many of us don't see the growth that Peter sees from here to chapter 16. So many of us don't see that because we don't keep moving. We just sit and we soak and we hide. The only thing that happens when you sit and you soak and you hide is you get moldy. You got to get out into the light. You got to move. Can I pray with you? God, we love you and we thank you. God, I pray for anybody in this room that's dealing with doubt in their lives right now, in their faith right now. And God, I pray a couple of things. First, that you would remove the shame that comes with it. I think that sometimes we get ashamed of having doubts because we think other people don't have them, and so they're better than us, and we should just, if we were just better, then we wouldn't deal with this. But God, it happens to all of us. Remove the shame and give us boldness, give us strength, give us the integrity, the intensity, the fortitude to face it and to overcome it. God, at the end of the day, you will bear yourself out. You will be made known. You will shine through. Give us the faith to trust that and to move forward. Give us the faith to trust that and to not be overcome. Give us the faith to step into that, knowing that it's not our own plans, it's not our own reason, it's not our own intelligence that we find firm ground on. We find firm ground. We find the ability to stand in you. God, we love you and we thank you. Amen.